I still remember the moment our scanners detected the signal buried beneath the asteroid's crust, a frequency older than our species, older than every star chart ever drawn. In that moment, I stood on the precipice between curiosity and dread, a thin line that would forever alter the course of my life. I should have turned back. I should have warned them all. But instead, I touched it. Before I go on, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story travels across the stars. The light of the control room felt colder that day. My hands trembled as I adjusted the controls of the Orion 7, our aging research vessel, its hull still bearing scars from 1,000 missions through the void. The team around me buzzed with excitement, but I felt a suffocating weight settle in my chest, a premonition that this discovery was not just a scientific breakthrough, but a key to something far more dangerous. As the scanner pulsed with life, the sharp beeping echoed through the sterile chamber. I could see the holographic display flickering, revealing a pattern, a sequence of symbols that danced across the screen, ancient yet undeniably familiar. My heart raced. I had seen this script before, buried in the archives of the lost digital libraries of Earth, remnants of our forgotten alphabet. This wasn't just a signal, it was a message. I hesitated, caught in a web of conflicting emotions. The thrill of discovery tugged at my mind, while an instinctual fear whispered that some truths were better left hidden. Yet the compulsion to know outweighed my hesitation. I glanced at my colleagues, their faces lit with a mix of wonder and ambition, eager to unearth the secrets of the cosmos. I felt like a ghost, haunting their excitement, tethered to a dark foreboding. I reached out, my fingers hovering above the control panel, trembling with uncertainty. The moment I pressed the key, the ship trembled as the ancient signals surged through our systems, flooding the room with an energy I had never encountered before. It was as if the universe had exhaled and we were inhaling the breath of something long forgotten. Suddenly, the lights flickered, the air thickened, and a low hum reverberated through the very fabric of the vessel. An alarm blared, filling the control room with a cacophony of red lights and frantic shouts. I felt the walls of the ship pulse with a strange energy, a heartbeat of the cosmos that felt both inviting and perilous. "What the hell is happening?" one of my team members shouted, panic twisting his voice. I turned to the holographic display, my mind racing to comprehend the chaos unfolding before us. The symbols on the screen morphed and expanded, shifting like shadows in the dark. Then came the tremors, a violent shudder that rattled our ship to its core. A wave of energy crashed through the Orion 7, sending us all sprawling. The room spun, and I lost my grip on reality for a heartbeat. In that fleeting moment, I glimpsed something in the depths of the flickering lights, a vision of a colossal structure, entangled in shadows, forgotten by time, pulsing with a primordial energy. The tremors ceased as suddenly as they began, leaving us in a deafening silence. My heart raced, blood pounding in my ears. I scrambled to my feet, my mind still swirling with the mystery of the relic we had just unearthed. I had to understand what we had awakened. In the days that followed, we analyzed the signal obsessively. Each decoded symbol held secrets of a civilization lost to the ages, their echoes reverberating through the stars. We learned they had been powerful, their technology unrivaled, yet something had driven them to extinction. The truth felt like a looming shadow, darkening our discoveries. As we delved deeper, the first signs of chaos began to ripple through the galaxy. Reports came in from the outlying colonies. Strange anomalies were manifesting in the fabric of space. Ships vanished without a trace, entire systems flickered out, and a cold dread settled over the universe. I felt it too, creeping into my bones, a sense of inevitable disaster. Despite the growing panic, my team remained resolute, believing we could harness the power of the relic to protect ourselves. We found comfort in our research, convinced that knowledge would shield us from the darkness that loomed. But I knew better. The truth was more insidious than we imagined. And then came the first catastrophe. I stood in the control room, grappling with the weight of our discovery, when the lights flickered again, this time more violently. The ship's alarms screamed like banshees in the night, drowning out all coherent thought. My team scrambled to their stations, but I felt rooted to the ground, an unwilling spectator to the chaos that unfolded. In fevered whispers, we debated our next steps. Should we send a distress signal? Should we abandon the mission? But the words felt hollow, overshadowed by the glaring truth. We had unleashed something we could not comprehend. It began with a ship, an imperial cruiser from the Zephyrian Empire, the most powerful faction in the quadrant. Its hull gleamed with a metallic sheen as it appeared on our sensors, drawn in by the same signal we had uncovered. I watched in horror as it approached, seemingly oblivious to the brewing storm. The cruiser's presence ignited a cold fire of desperation in my chest. Then, a rift tore through the fabric of reality. A blinding light erupted from the heart of the asteroid field. We were all witnesses to a phenomenon unlike any seen before, a cosmic anomaly that swallowed the cruiser whole, as if the universe had decided to reclaim its secrets. The ship's screams echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the lives lost in our pursuit of knowledge. The control room fell silent, the air thick with disbelief. I had been a part of awakening the relic, a catalyst for the chaos that followed. Guilt consumed me, but I could not voice it. I was paralyzed, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what we had done. The last remnants of hope flickered out, leaving only the oppressive weight of responsibility. As the stars blinked out one by one, I felt the encroaching darkness, a foreboding that transcended time and space. My pulse quickened, and a single thought anchored itself in my mind. We had awakened not just a relic, but a war. I looked around at my team, their faces reflecting my own terror. We had delved into the depths of the cosmos, and now we were witnessing the consequences of our greed. In that moment, I realized that knowledge could be a weapon just as powerful as any laser or missile. We were standing at the edge of a precipice, staring into the abyss, knowing that the choices we made from here on would determine not just our fate, but that of the entire galaxy. As tensions rose and whispers of war began to circulate, I felt the weight of our discovery pressing down on us, an ever-looming reminder of the path we had chosen. The moment I awakened the signal was a strange mix of exhilaration and dread. The control room erupted in a chorus of cheers, but the sound felt muffled, as if I had submerged myself deep underwater. My eyes were glued to the display, watching the patterns pulse and shimmer, like a heartbeat from a long-dead civilization. I could feel the energy in the room shift, a crackling tension that hinted at something far beyond our understanding. But just as quickly as the cheer erupted, it faded into an eerie silence. The lights around us flickered, and the ship shuddered violently. A wave of panic washed over me as the holographic projections glitched and warped, sending jagged lines across the screen. My colleagues exchanged worried glances, their excitement morphing into confusion. "What's happening?" someone shouted, their voice laced with fear. "I don't know," I replied, my heart racing. I was trapped between the thrill of discovery and the terror of whatever I had unleashed. My fingers danced over the controls, attempting to regain stability, but the system was spiraling out of control. The ship's alarms blared, a cacophony that drowned out reason. Then came the first anomaly. A flash of purple light surged outside the viewing window, illuminating the darkness of space. We all turned to see it, a swirling mass of energy that twisted like a living being. It expanded and contracted, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. I could feel it pulling at me, luring me closer, as if the cosmos itself were trying to communicate. "Can we stabilize the ship?" I shouted, my voice carrying the weight of urgency. "Trying," one of the engineers cried, fingers flying over their console. "But the gravitational fluctuations are off the charts. It's like something is forcing us into its orbit." I gritted my teeth, swallowing the dread that clawed at my throat. We were helpless, mere puppets caught in a cosmic dance we didn't understand. Outside, the anomaly writhed, tendrils of energy reaching out like fingers, seeking to grasp us. I could feel the pull. It was intoxicating, promising knowledge far beyond mere human comprehension. But beneath that allure lay the gnawing sense of impending doom. Then it happened. With a final surge of energy, the anomaly unleashed a shockwave that rocked the Orion 7. I was thrown against the console, my vision swirling as the ship bucked violently. I heard screams, felt panic rise like a tidal wave around me. Everything blurred into chaos. As the vessel fought against the force of the wave, alarms blared over the intercom. My colleagues shouted commands, but they were drowned out by the sound of metal creaking and systems failing. I struggled to regain my footing, heart pounding, desperate to focus amidst the turmoil. "Shut it down! Shut it all down!" I yelled, but my voice felt small against the tempest. "It's too late!" someone screamed back, their eyes wide with terror. "We're being pulled in!" The gravitational pull intensified, and I could see the stars outside the viewport warping, bending like light through glass. I felt a surge of hopelessness, the weight of realization crushing down on me. The signal, the awakening, it was not simply a discovery. It was a lure, a trap set by forces we could not begin to comprehend. In the midst of the chaos, I glimpsed the anomaly's true nature. It wasn't just a swirling mass of energy. It held a form, a visage that flickered in and out of existence. It was like looking into the face of the cosmos itself, a reflection of every fear, every desire humankind had ever harbored. And just as quickly as it came, it vanished, leaving behind an echo that reverberated through the ship. Without warning, the ship lurched violently, and I was thrown to the floor. The world spun around me, disorientation settling in like a heavy fog. When I finally managed to stand, I saw the control panels sparking and smoking, the lights flickering ominously. One by one, my team fell silent as they worked frantically to regain control. I could see fear etched on their faces, a mirror of my own dread. We had awakened something ancient, something that hungered. Just as I reached for the emergency protocols, a voice echoed through the ship. The voice of Captain Voss, calm yet commanding. "Prepare for emergency maneuvers. We need to break free from this pull." I felt a spark of hope at his words, but it quickly dulled as I watched the crew struggle against the overwhelming force. Systems were failing, and time was slipping away like sand through fingers. "Commander," the engineer called out, fear bubbling in their tone. "The anomaly is destabilizing the entire sector." "Divert power to thrusters," Captain Voss barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to get out of here now." I scrambled to comply, hands shaking as I followed the captain's orders. But as we adjusted the power, the ship shuddered again, and I realized that the anomaly was not merely reacting to our attempts to escape. It was alive, sentient, and aware. And then, without warning, it struck. A burst of energy erupted from the anomaly, a pulse that engulfed us in blinding light. My vision was drowned in white, and for a moment, I felt weightless, like the universe itself was holding its breath. When the light faded, I blinked against the darkness. The control room was spinning, the alarms muted and fading into silence. I struggled to understand what was happening, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of reality. "Status report," Captain Voss demanded, his voice strained, but no one responded. My heart sank. I turned to the viewport, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The stars had vanished, replaced by an impenetrable void. The anomaly was gone, but in its wake, it had left us adrift in the silence of space, lost and alone. I felt a chill creep down my spine. The discovery we had made, the ancient signal that had promised answers, had become our undoing. We were in a war we never anticipated, and it had only just begun. I remember the silence that followed the activation, a silence so profound it felt like the universe itself held its breath. The control room dimmed, the holographic projection shimmering ominously as the symbols shifted and morphed into shapes that I could no longer decipher. My heart pounded, each beat resonating in the vacuum of the room, echoing my own growing dread. I had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back. The atmosphere thickened as tendrils of uncertainty coiled around my mind. Everything felt different now. My colleagues, who had been jubilant just moments ago, began to exchange wary glances. It was as if the ancient frequency had cast a shadow over their spirits, dampening the spark of discovery we had all shared. And there I was, at the center of it all, responsible for unleashing whatever lay dormant within that cosmic relic. Did you see that? One of my teammates, a bright-eyed astrophysicist named Mira, murmured, her voice trembling. I turned to her, searching for reassurance, but all I found was fear mirrored in her eyes. The flickering symbols pulsed rhythmically, casting an ethereal glow across the room that felt both beautiful and menacing. Before I could respond, the ship shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the vessel. The lights flickered erratically, plunging us into a strobe-lit nightmare. I fumbled for the control panel, desperately trying to stabilize the ship. My fingers danced over the keys, but nothing seemed to respond. Panic surged as the realization hit me. We had awakened something beyond our understanding. The comm system crackled to life. "This is the bridge. We're experiencing system failures across all decks. We need to stabilize the ship before—" The message cut off, replaced by static. It took only moments for chaos to erupt around me. The crew scrambled, their faces pale with confusion and terror. I could feel the weight of their fear pressing down on me, each echo a reminder of my reckless choice. "Get us back to the asteroid!" I shouted, my voice barely rising above the din of alarms. But as we struggled to regain control, yet another tremor ran through the Orion 7, more severe than the last. The ship lurched, and I found myself gripping the console for dear life, a desperate plea for stability amidst the storm. "We can't hold her!" Mira cried, staring wide-eyed at the display. "The power surge is overwhelming. We have to—" "Divert all power to stabilizers," I barked, the urgency of the moment stripping away any semblance of calm. I felt the sweat bead on my brow as I fought against the tide of chaos. Our ship was a fragile thing, a speck of dust in the vastness of space, and right now it felt as if the universe itself was conspiring against us. The Orion 7 shuddered again, and with a deafening crack, the lights went out completely. We were plunged into darkness, the only sounds the frantic beeping of alarms and the racing heartbeats of my crew. I felt a cold grip of fear twist in my gut as I realized we were adrift, a vessel lost in a cosmic sea. "What do we do?" Mira's voice broke through the gloom, tinged with despair. "Stay calm," I whispered, even as my own heart raced. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I reached for the emergency lights, my fingers trembling as I flicked the switch. A dim glow illuminated the control room, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the walls. And for a moment, I felt transfixed by the sight. It was then that I noticed something on the scanner, a flicker of movement in the depths of space surrounding us. "Look," I pointed, my voice steady now, overriding the chaotic thoughts swirling in my mind. "There's something out there." A shape began to emerge on the display, a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the stars. It was vast, looming closer with each second. I held my breath, my pulse quickening. The realization struck me like a cold wave. Whatever we had awakened was not simply a malfunction. It was a beacon, drawing something toward us. "Is it a ship?" one of my colleagues asked, eyes wide with fear. No, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. It's something else. The shapes began to coalesce, forming a fleet of shadowy vessels, all converging on our location. They were unlike any ships I had seen before, ancient and ominous, gliding through the darkness with an eerie grace. A chill ran down my spine. The relic had not just awakened dormant power, it had summoned something that had been waiting, watching. I felt the weight of my choices pressing heavily on my shoulders. I had sought knowledge, but in doing so, I had become a catalyst for destruction. The crew's panic swelled around me, a palpable energy that ignited the air. I closed my eyes for a moment, focusing on the darkness behind my eyelids, trying to stave off the tide of fear. I had to act, to find a way to protect my team from the impending doom. Everyone, listen, I said, forcing my voice to rise above the chaos. We need to prepare for impact, gather supplies, anything we can use to defend ourselves. The crew moved with renewed purpose, scrambling to gather weapons and protective gear. I watched, my heart heavy with the knowledge that whatever we faced would not be a simple encounter. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the control panel. The fear I saw mirrored the depths of the void surrounding us, a reminder of the darkness we had unleashed. A part of me wanted to flee, to bury my head in the sand and pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't. The weight of responsibility, the lives of my crew, anchored me to that moment. As the shadowy fleet drew nearer, I braced myself for what lay ahead, knowing that the true test had only just begun. Would we have the fortitude to face whatever was coming, or would we succumb to the darkness we had unknowingly invited into our lives? In that uncertainty, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps we could find a way through this, a path that might lead us back to the light. But that path required courage and the strength to confront not just the unknown, but the very truths about ourselves that we had long been afraid to face. The moment I realized we had no control was an epiphany I wish I could forget. The lights in the control room flickered like dying stars, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. I was surrounded by my colleagues, their faces pale and drawn, their once excited expressions now replaced by anxiety. The flicker of the screens mirrored our sinking hearts, revealing glimpses of chaos outside. The cosmic anomaly pulsed with a sinister allure, drawing us in as if it were a siren, calling us into the depths of an ocean we could not survive. "Get us away from it!" I screamed, my voice breaking through the frantic beeping of alarms. The engineers were still frantically tapping at their consoles, trying to counter the gravitational forces that bound us to this chaos. I felt a pit in my stomach. Every second that passed seemed like an eternity suspended in terror. "It's no use," someone shouted back. "The systems are failing." My heart sank deeper. I had awakened something ancient, something that perhaps should have remained buried in the void. A part of me ached to understand it, to probe its secrets, but the rising tide of dread stifled that curiosity. I had only hoped for enlightenment, yet all I felt was the weight of impending doom. Outside the viewport, the anomaly writhed, a tempest in the cold silence of space. Tendrils of purple energy slithered across the hull, crackling like electric vines. I could almost hear whispers hidden within the chaos, sweet nothings from a time when this void was alive. Had I unleashed a force that could unravel the very fabric of our reality? The ship shuddered violently, and I stumbled, gripping the edge of my console for support. My heart raced as I glanced at the main display. "What's happening to the ship?" I demanded again, desperate for an explanation that no one seemed capable of providing. "It's like we're trapped in a gravitational anomaly," one engineer said, their voice trembling. "The ship can't break free." My mind raced, piecing together the events that had led us here. The signal, the relic buried beneath the asteroids, the first pulse of energy, it was all connected, and I was the architect of this catastrophe. I remembered the ancient texts I had studied, the warnings of civilizations long gone. They spoke of powers beyond understanding. What had I done to awaken such a force? Focus on stabilizing the ship, I urged, battling the rising tide of fear threatening to drown me in its depths. We need to break free. But even as I said the words, I felt a creeping realization. We were not merely facing a mechanical failure. This was something far more profound, something we could not hope to control or escape. The anomaly loomed larger in our viewport, its pulsing rhythm now synchronized with my heartbeat. The colors swirled hypnotically, and I felt drawn into its depths, as if a part of me yearned to connect with it. But I forced myself to look away, the weight of responsibility anchoring me to reality. Suddenly, the ship lurched again, and alarms blared louder, the piercing sound echoing in my ears. I could feel the panic rising among my crew. I glanced at the navigation screen and noticed something horrifying. Our coordinates were shifting. We were being pulled closer to the heart of the anomaly. "Reversing thrusters, now!" I commanded, my voice rising above the chaos. The engineers responded, their fingers flying over the controls with desperate speed. But it felt futile. We were caught in a cosmic web, and the more we struggled, the tighter it pulled us in. "It's no use," one of them shouted. "We're losing power." The words felt like a death sentence. I couldn't let it end like this, not after all the sacrifices we had made to reach this point. I had to do something, anything. In that moment, a strange calm washed over me, a clarity sparked by the impending doom. I thought back to the relic, the warmth I had felt when I first activated its signal. Maybe it held the key to our salvation. There had to be a reason I was drawn to it. "Can we access the relic's systems?" I asked, an idea forming in the back of my mind. "It may have some kind of—" "Are you insane?" one of my colleagues interjected, fear mingling with disbelief in their voice. "That could make things worse." But what choice did we have? We were facing annihilation. "We'll die if we don't try," I countered, my heart racing. "We need to tap into its energy. It might be our only chance." Time stretched as we debated, the anomaly outside pulling us closer with each passing second. My instincts screamed at me to act. "Access the relic," I called again, this time with a raw urgency. One engineer hesitated, but reluctantly nodded. They redirected their focus, fingers flying over their console. The ship's systems flickered, and I felt a tinge of hope. If we could harness whatever power resided within that relic, maybe we could break free. But as they worked, the anomaly suddenly pulsed violently, a burst of energy that rocked the ship. My heart dropped as I watched the readings spike dangerously. "Hurry, we don't have much time." The room became a whirlwind of panic and desperation. The engineers worked feverishly, sweat beading on their foreheads. I could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on me, the reality of our situation closing in like an inescapable trap. "Almost there," they shouted, and I held my breath. The anomaly outside seemed to roar, its energy clashing with our ship's defenses. Just as I thought we might have a chance, the ship lurched violently again, and alarms blared with renewed fury. "Brace yourselves," I shouted, the words barely escaping my lips. We were spiraling into the unknown, trapped in a cosmic nightmare of my own making. And just when I thought we had lost all hope, the ship's systems hummed to life, a surge of energy racing through us. I felt the relic respond, its essence intertwining with our own, as if it recognized the urgency of our plight. Then, without warning, the anomaly clawed back, and the control room was engulfed in a blinding light. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end, yet a part of me wondered if this was not just the end, but perhaps the beginning of something even greater. In that split second, I couldn't help but feel the collision of fear and hope, a cosmic dance that echoed through the depths of my being. What lay ahead? In the vast darkness of space, the answer remained as elusive as the stars themselves. Yet I knew one truth. Whatever emerged from this chaos would forever change the course of human history. In that chaotic moment, I realized the enormity of what we had unleashed. The ship shuddered violently again, as if it were a living thing, writhing under the influence of forces we could not comprehend. I staggered, bracing myself against the console, my mind racing. What had I done? The symbols on the screen pulsated, each beat echoing the turmoil in my heart. They seemed to mock my ignorance, whispering truths I could not grasp. Mira's voice broke through the din, shaky yet resolute. We need to regain control. The relic, it's affecting the ship's systems. Her eyes darted between the flickering screens and the crew scrambling in panic. I could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on me, suffocating and relentless. "Everyone, to your stations! We need to stabilize the ship," I shouted, attempting to project authority, but my voice came out strained, a mere echo of the fear gripping my chest. As the crew scrambled to follow my command, I felt the pulse of the relic deep within me, a strange resonance that seemed to synchronize with my very being. The lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness for a heart-stopping moment. The emergency lights cast a dim red glow, illuminating the frantic expressions of my colleagues. I glanced at the control panel, desperately trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding around us. The ship's systems were failing one after another, each failure accompanied by an ominous thrum from the relic that bonded us to its ancient power. "Can you stabilize the navigational thrusters?" Mira asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. I nodded, but a gnawing uncertainty clawed at me. Could we really control whatever we had awakened? As I focused on the console, my fingers hovered over the holographic display. "I'm trying," I shouted, but the words felt weak against the backdrop of the chaos. The ship shuddered once more, this time with a jarring force that sent several crew members sprawling to the floor. Panic surged through the room, amplified by the relentless alarms blaring in our ears. The relic's glow intensified, bathing the control room in a surreal light that felt both beautiful and terrifying. It was as if the ship had become a conduit for its power, channeling energies that were never meant for us. "We have to," I began, but before I could finish, the ship lurched violently, throwing me against the wall. The pain shot through me, but it was nothing compared to the dread filling my heart. As I regained my footing, I looked at Mira, who was now desperately trying to keep the crew focused. "We need to initiate emergency protocols," she called out, her voice cutting through the panic. But even as we worked, it felt like the relic had its own agenda, an ancient consciousness awakening from eons of slumber. Suddenly, the ship's hull groaned, a sound like metal being pulled apart. I braced myself against the console, my heart racing as I tried to process the cascading failures of our systems. "We're losing power," someone shouted, their voice barely audible over the alarms. I could see the fear in their eyes, a reflection of my own growing dread. The control room felt like a coffin, sealing us inside with an entity we had no power over. The holographic display flickered again, but this time the symbols began to rearrange themselves into a sequence I recognized. They were coordinates, ancient pathways mapped across the stars, beckoning us to a destination I could not fathom. "Look," I pointed to the display, my voice a mix of awe and terror. "It's showing us something." The crew stopped in their tracks, staring at the glowing symbols as if caught in a trance. But my heart sank as I realized that these coordinates could lead us to our doom. "Is it a way out?" Mira asked, her eyes wide with a blend of hope and fear. "Or a trap?" I swallowed hard. the truth dawning on me like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkness. I don't know. I felt the weight of my choice pressing down on me with every passing second. But we have to make a decision, now. Just then, the ship rattled violently again, and the lights flickered before plunging us into darkness once more. The alarms continued to blare, but they felt distant, muffled by the fear consuming me. The crew was looking to me for answers, but I had none to give. The air in the control room grew thick, laden with unspoken questions and fears. I could feel the relic's pulse resonating throughout the ship, as if it were urging us to make a choice. "We have to trust it," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We have to follow the coordinates." Gasps echoed in the dim light. "Are you out of your mind?" one of the engineers shouted, panic flooding his voice. "We could be walking into a trap." "You want to stay here?" I countered, my heart pounding in my chest. "We're losing control. We have to act." Mira stepped closer, her eyes searching mine for some sign of certainty. "If we leave, there's no turning back." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, each syllable a reminder of the stakes we were facing. I hesitated, the enormity of the situation pressing down on me like the gravity of a dying star. But deep down, I felt an inexplicable pull toward the coordinates, an ancient call that resonated within me. "We have to trust ourselves and the relic," I finally said, my resolve hardening. With a collective breath, we prepared for what lay ahead, knowing that the relic was both our guide and our potential downfall. I activated the navigation controls, setting our course toward the unknown, the symbols shimmering with a life of their own. As the ship lurched forward, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into a story much larger than ourselves, one written across the fabric of the cosmos, entwined with the relic's fate and ours. In that moment, the silence around us felt more profound than ever, as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting to reveal the truth hidden within the stars. The moment I realized we had no control was an epiphany I wish I could forget. The lights in the control room flickered like dying stars, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. I was surrounded by my colleagues, their faces pale and drawn, their once excited expressions now replaced by anxiety. The flicker of the screens mirrored our sinking hearts, revealing glimpses of chaos outside. The cosmic anomaly pulsed with a sinister allure, drawing us in as if it were a siren calling us into the depths of an ocean we could not survive. "Get us away from it!" I screamed, my voice breaking through the frantic beeping of alarms. The engineers were still frantically tapping at their consoles, trying to counter the gravitational forces that bound us to this chaos. I felt a pit in my stomach. Every second that passed seemed like an eternity suspended in terror. "It's no use," someone shouted back. "The systems are failing." My heart sank deeper. I had awakened something ancient, something that perhaps should have remained buried in the void. A part of me ached to understand it, to probe its secrets, but the rising tide of dread stifled that curiosity. I had only hoped for enlightenment, yet all I felt was the weight of impending doom. Outside the viewport, the anomaly writhed, a tempest in the cold silence of space. Tendrils of purple energy slithered across the hull, crackling like electric vines. I could almost hear whispers hidden within the chaos, sweet nothings from a time when this void was alive. Had I unleashed a force that could unravel the very fabric of our reality? The ship shuddered violently, and I stumbled, gripping the edge of my console for support. My heart raced as I glanced at the main display. "What's happening to the ship?" I demanded again, desperate for an explanation that no one seemed capable of providing. "It's like we're trapped in a gravitational anomaly," one engineer said, their voice trembling. "The ship can't break free." My mind raced with memories of the ancient texts I had pored over, the warnings buried within them. They had spoken of power that could devour worlds, and here I was, the unwitting catalyst of our potential extinction. A blaring alarm pierced the air, flooding my thoughts with fear. "We need to evacuate," I shouted, the urgency of my words cutting through the despair. There was no time for hesitation. We were on the brink of something catastrophic, and I could no longer hide behind my thirst for knowledge. But as I turned to lead my team to the escape pods, I caught a glimpse of the anomaly through the viewport. The swirling mass of energy illuminated the darkness, revealing patterns that seemed almost familiar. My heart clenched. It was as if the relic had spoken to me, etching ancient symbols into the very fabric of reality, a forgotten language now resurfacing to haunt us. "Is that?" I whispered, my breath hitching. "Are we seeing the patterns from the relic?" One of the scientists stepped closer, squinting at the screen. "It looks like it, but how? We thought those symbols were lost to time." The dread in their voice only deepened my own sense of foreboding. We had touched something more than we could fathom, and now it was reaching back. Suddenly, the ship lurched again, the force throwing us against the walls. I braced myself, feeling the pressure of the anomaly clawing at my very essence. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, forcing myself to remember the tranquility I had felt when I first understood the relic. It had been a fleeting moment of clarity. Now it felt like a distant dream. As the chaos erupted around us, I felt an urge to shift my focus inward. The answers I sought were not in the ship's failing systems, but within the relic's wisdom, buried deep in my mind. "We need to harness its energy," I shouted, surprising everyone. "It's the only chance we have." "Are you insane?" one engineer yelled back, their face a mask of disbelief. "That could kill us all." "Or it could save us," I countered, my resolve hardening. "We have to connect with it, to understand what we've awakened." In that moment, I realized the relic had not just drawn us into danger, it had also offered us a pivotal choice. We could succumb to fear, or we could transcend it. With sheer determination, I moved to the central console, my hands trembling as I initiated the sequence that would link our systems to the anomaly. The ship shook violently, and I felt the energy of the relic pulse through me, as if we were two bodies in a cosmic dance. "Hold on," I shouted, my heart racing as I felt the ship stabilize for the first time. The screens flickered, displaying the symbols once more, now morphing into a coherent pattern. "It's showing us a way." As I continued to synchronize the ship's systems with the energy of the anomaly, I felt an indescribable connection to the universe. The whispers turned into a chorus, each note resonating with the deepest fears and hopes of humanity. The relic was not merely an object, it was a bridge to our shared past, an echo of civilizations lost, and a promise of redemption. The energy surged, and I could see the anomaly shifting, as if responding to our plea. The ship began to move, slowly at first, then gaining speed as we broke free from the gravitational pull. I looked up, meeting the eyes of my colleagues, their fear replaced by a flicker of hope. "We are not alone," I murmured, feeling the weight of generations behind me. The relic had revealed a truth. Our destinies were intertwined, stretching across the stars. As we escaped the grasp of the anomaly, the chaos outside began to calm. The tendrils of energy receded, and the cosmic tempest surrendered to silence. We had survived, but the victory felt bittersweet. We had glimpsed the abyss, understood the dangers we had awakened, yet also recognized the power of unity. "Let's chart a new course," I said, my voice steadier now. "We must learn from this. The universe is vast, and our future is unwritten." In that moment, I understood that the true gift of the relic was not just its power, but the lessons it imparted. We were explorers, bound to the cosmos, carrying the weight of our past, but also the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As we set our new course among the stars, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The echoes of the past would guide us, and together we would carve a path forward, a path steeped in wisdom, courage, and hope. If the universe had taught me one thing, it was that truth always finds a way to light the darkness. If you believe the universe always finds a way to reveal the truth, subscribe and stay with us among the stars.